Welcome back to another Ask an Expert. We're here with Tony from GME Australia, and we're here to answer a whole bunch of questions and myths that you guys have sent in over the past week or two about everything UHF and communications. But I reckon first, Tony, why don't we tell the people a little bit about yourself and a little bit about GME. So you're the GME marketing manager. You've been with the company for a little over 5 years.
That's right.
Now, GME have been engineering, designing, and for the most part manufacturing in Australia for over 60 years. Is that right?
That's correct, mate. We had a 60th anniversary last year.
Outstanding. Now, although today we're focusing on UHFs, aerials, communications, it's not all that you guys do, is it?
No, not by any means. We also have a range of marine products. We're quite a big player in the emergency beacon market. We make marine VHF radios and antennas, some television distribution systems products, and also professional radio.
Yeah, right, so quite a fair bit.
Yes.
That's for sure. Well, today we're going to be sort of delving in and focusing on the four-wheel drive aspect of things, the UHFs, the communicators that you guys use when you're out four-wheel driving or kicking around a racetrack and that kind of thing. So I reckon we hook into some of these questions that you guys have sent in because a couple of them are absolute pearlers. Now, this first question is from a fella named Paul on Facebook. Now, he wants to know, does the XRS Connect have a playback function for the previous transmission?
It sure does, Sam. So the XRS Connect range of products from GME do have a feature that we call XRS Voice Playback. The radio continually records every transmission, so it'll record the first 30 seconds of each transmission up to a total of 12 minutes. You can then program one of the buttons on the radio to cycle back through those transmissions. It'll tell you which channel you received it on and approximately how long ago.
Yeah, right, that's fantastic. I guess if you do miss that last little bit of a certain transmission or you just want to hear the roast that your mate just gave you, then you can hit replay and listen to it.
100%. It's a lot easier than asking everybody to repeat themselves all the time, particularly if you've got a noisy old vehicle or you've got the stereo turned up.
Yeah, I think we can both relate to that.
Yes, we certainly can.
Yeah. All right, now this next one is from Jason. Now he wants to know, is there a specific place or location that suits a certain aerial better when mounting it on your vehicle?
Yeah, look, it's a good question. Traditionally, many years ago, most of the antennas available were ground-dependent design, which meant they needed a ground plane. So effectively, the best place for the aerial was in the center of the roof. Now, a lot of people understandably don't want to drill holes in the roof of their car. And now we've got a range of ground-independent designs, so antennas that don't require the ground plane, which means you can mount them pretty much anywhere. However, the best spot for your UHF antenna is going to be somewhere where there's no obstructions. So if you've got a bull bar, out on the tab on the bull bar is the best place and the one that we recommend.
Yep.
We see a lot of antennas mounted on the rear of the vehicle, on the spare wheel carrier and places like that. And the performance that you get out of the antenna is going to be nowhere near its true potential.
Okay.
So wherever possible, up high.
Yep.
And no obstructions is what we recommend.
Yeah, fantastic. And I guess you guys I've just seen this new product today for the first time, these on-glass antennas. So now, although these might not be as efficient as a bull bar mount, for those guys that don't have a bull bar and they might be worried, oh, heck, do I invest the money in the UHF? I guess you guys have come out with this on-glass antenna. That means you don't actually need a bull bar. You could just roll with one of these.
That's correct. So these on-glass antennas are a really interesting kind of technology and really suitable for those modern vehicles that maybe don't have a bull bar or don't want one.
Yep.
And also there is a theft element to it. So
Yep.
if you're in an area where, theft is a bit of a concern, with an on-glass antenna, there's no way of anybody accessing your antenna and taking the whip off or anything like that.
Yeah, fantastic. So you got an option for pretty much everyone, I guess. And
for sure, yeah. We have a range of about 100 different antennas. It can be pretty confusing when you look at them all, but they've all got a purpose and a specific application.
Yeah, fantastic. And I guess if you guys do have questions, GME is based here in Sydney, so
That's
you
correct.
can call up, you can speak to the guys and they're going to be able to help you out.
That's right.
Choose a radio and even an aerial that's going to suit your exact need.
That's right.
Now this next question is from a mate of mine, actually Chris, and he wants to know, and this is probably a very common question, is what is squelch and what exactly does adjusting it do?
All right, it is a good question and it's one that we get asked all the time. So quite simply, what squelch does is it suppresses weak signals being received by the radio to try and reduce unnecessary noise. So if you're on the edge of a transmission, it'll open the squelch on your radio and you'll get that static noise, but you may not be able to hear the words coming through. That'll be because it's a weak signal. Now, the more you turn your squelch up, the more that's going to suppress those unwanted signals.
Gotcha.
So on our radios, we've got about 10 different levels of squelch adjustment.
Yep.
The lower, the better. but you need to play around depending on where you are and what sort of environment you're in.
Yeah, gotcha. So I guess if you've got a small, tight-knit group, you don't care for anyone else, you could probably dial it in so that you're not really getting anybody outside that small region.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and really what it means is you're only going to filter the strongest signals coming through, and you're going to hear the best quality transmissions.
Fantastic. There you go. Well, that's quite a technical way of, well, it's kind of been simplified for us laymen's, because I even didn't really know what it did. I just know there's a big dial or a button that says squelch and you just don't touch it. So that's good. I'm glad we found that out. Now this next question is from Simon. Now he's actually a good friend of Sparesbox. He is one of the Bull Rush Rally owners and enthusiasts, and he wants to know, is there a specific way you should choose a UHF channel to talk on?
Look, it's another good question, and one that we probably don't have time to answer in its entirety here today.
Yep.
Quite simply though, within the 80 channels on the UHF band in Australia, there are certain channels that we are allowed to use and certain channels that we're not allowed to use. So the first two that you should probably know not to use are 5 and 35, which are the emergency channels. Now, obviously, in an emergency, you can use those channels. The channel number 11 is the widely regarded as the call channel. So if you want to initiate a conversation with someone, you generally start on 11, you make initial communication, and then you choose a channel to switch to and use that as your working channel. Outside of that, there's a couple of channels, 22 and 23, which are reserved for telemetry use only, so data, not voice, so you can't transmit on those ones. There's also repeater channels, so input and output channels, so 1 to 8 and 41 to 48, and then they've got corresponding channels for their inputs.
Gotcha.
Outside of that, there's some common channels that are used around Australia. So widely regarded as, I guess, the most common highway channel is channel 40. A lot of your caravanners will use channel 18.
Yep.
But then depending on where you are around the country, certain areas tend to rely on certain channels.
Okay.
So a particular four-wheel drive group in an area might select a channel that they always use.
Yep.
You'll often see them on the back of the vehicle, and that's a good way of knowing who's using what in a local area.
Gotcha. So don't use the emergency channels.
Try not to.
If you do want to spark up a conversation with a grey nomad, Sandy, and his old mate Bob cruising down the M5, then, well, jump onto channel 40 or 18.
Yep.
And other than that, go for gold.
That's right.
All right, Tony, this next question is from Callum. Now, Callum wants to know, do you guys offer a budget-friendly starter pack? Because I guess from the outside, you might be looking in and looking at the XRS. It's got a screen, it's got a lot of buttons going on. You don't really know how to use it. You're just building your first four-wheel drive. You not want to break the bank. What would you recommend for someone like that?
Yeah, so we've got a good range of UHF radios ranging from $249 right up to your sort of $500 mark where your XRS value packs sit.
Yep.
Our entry level is the TX3100. So this little guy here, it's a nice compact unit. It's still a 5-watt 80-channel UHF. We sell that one for $249, as I said, just as a standalone radio with your mic and all your gear. And we also sell the 3100 in a starter kit. So to your point, Sam, for someone who's just starting out, they're not really sure which aerial or which radio they should be going for.
Yep.
This is an all-in-one solution. So you buy the box, you get the radio, the mic, the antenna, and your mounting brackets, and that's enough to get you out there and communicating with everybody.
Fantastic. That looks like a perfect little kit as well. The 6.6 dB aerial in there is going to give you good all-round comms, I guess?
That's right. So it comes with this aerial here. As I said, the radio and the mounting bracket and all that's under $300. So it's still an affordable radio for those looking to get started.
Outstanding. There you go, Callum. If you're looking for a budget-friendly option and an entry into the UHF market with GME, that's probably going to be your go. Now, we have a few questions that have come in through messages, through Instagram and Facebook as well. So I thought we'll quickly run through that, well, as quickly as we can, because this first one's a perler, and I'm glad you're here because this is another one I've got no idea about. What do the ratings, the dB ratings of different aerials actually mean? I know it's probably a multifaceted answer.
That is a corker.
Yeah.
So look, I'm gonna take the easy way out here. If you really want to get the technical ins and outs, the best place to find out is Wikipedia.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty technical thing. There's a lot of calculations, but we can simplify it for majority of people and really explain why the dB ratings make a certain antenna work better in certain scenarios.
Gotcha.
So in our range, we start with a 2.1 dB gain, and again, we've got them in many different form factors.
Yep.
This one here is one of our most popular. So this is a 2.1 dB, super heavy duty four-wheel drive antenna.
And that's actually the one we're using on the Sparesbox 200 series. It's tried and tested with 4-drive 24/7 as well. So we've got good experience with that one.
Yeah, nice, robust Australian-made product there. So the 2.1 dB gain, basically the lower the number, the shorter the antenna, generally speaking,
Yep.
and the difference in radiation pattern. So when you go from a 2.1 to a 6.6 to an 8.1, the bigger number is not necessarily better, and a bigger antenna is not always necessarily better. So depending on the length of the antenna dictates the radiation pattern.
Okay.
So a small antenna, like the 2.1 antennas there, will radiate quite a round pattern.
Okay.
So if you're in the high country or you're in a built-up area, a shorter antenna is going to give you better performance because it's going to be able to radiate past some of those obstructions. It won't give you as much in terms of outright distance, but because UHF communication, like a lot of two-way radio, is line of sight, to enable you to get past those obstructions, that radiation pattern is going to help you.
Okay.
If you're out on more open country, then a 6.6 dBi antenna is going to give you better reach, but it will not be able to overcome obstructions because the radiation pattern is squashed.
Okay, gotcha.
When you go up the range into an 8.1 dB antenna, fantastic if you're out in the middle of the Simo or you're out in a nullarbor. You're going to get much greater transmission distance, but again, quite a narrow radiation pattern. So it's not going to overcome obstructions as easily.
Gotcha, gotcha. And I guess separate to that, as well as the dBs, I guess it also depends on the real estate you've got available for an aerial, because we've got an 8.8
8.1 over here, this one.
It's quite a thing, this, I'll tell you that much.
Look, these are quite long antennas. They're great for flagpoles. Just ask any of the B&S boys. They love running flags on these things.
You could just about do beach fishing with that thing.
You probably could, or put a sand flag on the top of it.
Yeah, outstanding. So, okay, interesting. So bigger isn't always better. That's probably a huge misconception when it comes to buying the UHF aerials. People just go, the biggest, the thickest, the coolest looking one, but it might actually not be perfect for what you guys need. So do your research and work out sort of what your trips are going to be, I guess, before you go and spend the money. If you want to buy two, I guess. Is there any reason why people wouldn't or shouldn't buy two different aerials if they're running two UHFs or anything like that?
No, not at all. That's a great point. So these antennas here that we're talking about now, these are called our AE 4700 series, and the spring and base is interchangeable with all three of the whips.
Okay.
So you can buy one spring and base, have it mounted on your vehicle, and then have multiple options with your antenna whip. So if you're going on a high country trip, you drop the smaller antenna on. If you're going to go out and head out into the desert, then you put one of the larger, longer antennas on to suit the conditions.
Yeah, awesome. So you can really get the best of all worlds.
That's right.
Fantastic. Now this next question is for something that we haven't talked about yet, and that is for these little guys here, the Handhelds. Now, just about every colour of the Skittles rainbow down there, but that's not the question. The question is there a difference between the little 2 watt that we have here and the 5 watt that we have?
Yeah, there's a number of differences. So the key differences between the 2 and the 5 watt radios is obviously size. You can see straight away one's larger. One of the main reasons that the 5 watter is larger is it's got a much higher capacity battery. So it's going to give you a much longer runtime, up to 30 hours on our 5 watt range.
Sure.
You're going to get greater transmission power with a 5 watt versus a 2 watt, which is going to give you greater distance.
Okay.
The 5 watt radios that we sell are also IP rated. So these have got an IP67 rating, meaning they're waterproof and dustproof. So if you're out on the tracks or you're out in some adverse conditions, it's going to give you a much more, I guess, rugged product that's going to stand up to a bit more abuse than the lower end.
Yeah, okay, cool. Dust, water, drops, all that kind of thing, you're going to get a bit more resistance out of them.
Definitely.
With the bigger ones. Cool. And I guess this leads us into probably another probably common question for you guys. I know we've been asked it a fair bit here, is that if I went out and bought this today, would I be able to talk to you in your 80 with an in-vehicle UHF, even if they're different brands, even if they're different dB ratings?
100%. In order to sell a UHF radio in Australia, all manufacturers need to ensure that their products are interoperable. So basically, they've all got to talk to each other.
Gotcha.
So the full range of GME handheld and fixed mount radios will obviously all talk to each other. But if you've got a different brand in your truck and you haven't yet upgraded to a GME, then you're still going to be able to hear the transmissions coming through.
Fantastic. Now, we've talked a lot about UHFs today. We've pretty much covered just about everything: handhelds, in-car, on-glass antennas, the lot. But I know out in the nether region of the world, there's all sorts of other business going on. You've got HFs, you've got CBs, you've got UHF CBs. what are the differences? Because even I'm a bit confused by that.
Yeah, sure. So Australia's kind of unique with UHF-CB. So the government has allowed us to use those 80 channels and that allocation of the spectrum to communicate for free, which is somewhat unique.
Yep.
As you pointed out though, there are a number of other radio communication products out there. So you've got AM-CB, which is 27 meg.
Okay.
So that's got lower output power, so you're capped at 4 watt versus your 5 watt on your UHF-CB.
Okay.
You've also only got 40 channels versus the 80 on UHF. So
Gotcha.
AM 27 meg in Australia is sort of considered a little bit older technology.
Yep.
And then your HF radios are a completely different beast. So rather than being line of sight communication like a UHF-CB or AM, HF radios actually bounce the signal off the ionosphere, which means that you can get hundreds, if not thousands of kilometres of transmission distance out of an HF radio. It's frequency to frequency, and also you need a license. So you need a license channels for it. The cost of entry to that kind of market is considerable. It's not the same sort of price points as a UHF radio.
Gotcha.
You need much bigger antennas and completely different gear to make the HF system work.
Yeah, gotcha. So UHF is almost definitely the go for what we want to do, forward driving, communicating to your mates, all that kind of thing.
For sure.
Outstanding. Well, guys, if you do have any more UHF questions, then we are more than happy to try and answer them. So leave them in the comments below. As always, if you've loved what you've seen, make sure you like, follow, subscribe, do all those good things, share it around to your mates. If you do have any more technical questions or you want to find out more about the GME range, head to sparesbox.com.au, or of course, you can speak to the team at GME Australia. They're based right here in Sydney, and they're more than happy to talk you through all the technical queries you might have. Tony, mate, thanks for coming down.
Thanks a lot, Sam.
Until next time.